Hi everybody, this is your favorite ramen-loving Shintoist Reigetsu again, bringing you deep truths that very few people know about Japan from the mythological times. Thank you to all the new members of this channel. I truly appreciate each and every one of you. Today, I will talk about why we believe Japan has so few cases of the corona compared to the rest of the world and how Shinto and Onmyoji played a big role in it. Okay, so right now, the 11th of February, we have 409,000 cases, 369,000 cured, and 6,601 deaths. Japan is world famous for being ultra clean. The majority of the streets, restaurants, buildings, and houses are all sparkling clean. The places that are dirty, like some areas of Tokyo and Osaka, are not areas predominantly occupied by us Japanese. We, the Japanese, also tend to take our hygiene seriously, so we will always be presentable. The reason for all of this is because, as I have mentioned before, the Japanese gods hate kegare or filth more than anything. The belief in the gods of Japan and what they did is in the Shinto beliefs, and Shinto is the original philosophy and religion of Japan. We practice what they did. If they hate filth, then so do we, and do everything possible to cleanse it. One way of doing this is one of our many traditions of having a bath every single night before bed, and many of these practices come from the Japanese mythology, which are still taught to this day through Shinto. I will get into this more when I do an entire episode on the father of Japan, Izanagi no Okami. Short story, as he came out of the Yomi no Kuni, the land of the dead, he was completely covered in kegare, so he purified himself in the Misogi-ike, a river back then, and had the first misogi, the purification ritual, and purified himself. This is the origin of why, traditionally, we Japanese have a bath every single night, which means we are still imitating the examples of our great father, Izanagi no Okami, after more than 3,000 years. This is also a marvelous way of preventing the spread of diseases. I repeat, Shinto is the root of many traditions and customs of Japan, which are things that the present-day Japanese have forgotten, unfortunately. I will be sharing all of this with more videos to come. But how did all of this exactly start? Not only from a mythological viewpoint, but from historical and scientific viewpoints. The answer to that is all thanks to our 10th emperor, Sujin Tenno, Mimaki Irihiko Inie no Sumera Mikoto-sama, who lived from 97 to 30 BC, although some say it was really from the mid-3rd century to the beginning of the 4th century during the Kofun era. We have numerous cases of epidemics written in the Kojiki and the Nihon Shoki. The first emperor that experienced this was Sujin Tenno. So, as Japan was struck with the first epidemic, he observed that the people who were in large gatherings who coughed and touched others were making them sick. He deduced that these invisible kamis, the gods of diseases or the aramitama of certain gods, spread by being in the proximity of others and through touching. Back then, the places where the people gathered for town hall meeting purposes were always in the Shinto shrines. So he created the Temizusha or Chozuya, as I have mentioned in my video on how to correctly pray in Shinto shrines, so that the people could wash their hands and mouths for sanitation purposes to prevent diseases from spreading, which later on led to the Japanese custom and the habit of washing our hands and mouth once we come home. He also spread the habit and custom of washing hands before eating and after going to the bathrooms in Japan. This greatly helped the people back then, and we were able to come out of the epidemics better than all the other Asian countries, which shared worse outcomes later on, and this was all thanks to Sujin Tenno. Sujin Tenno, Banzai! But before the invention of Temizusha, People purified their entire bodies before going to shrines with the sole purpose of praying, not for simple gatherings, so don't get those two mixed up. Now, the Temizusha is only for purifying the hands and mouth before entering a shrine to show the utmost respect to the gods you are trying to connect to. Now enters the Onmyoji. Onmyoji is something very misunderstood. They were not only sorcerers and magicians like these misinforming YouTubers will have you believe, or the exaggerated crap they show you in the world of anime. They were not people who were praying to the gods 24/7 and doing some hocus pocus fortune telling all day long. Get ready to have your worlds rocked and turned upside down for all of you Onmyoji fans. Onmyojis were, if not the very first scientists of Japan. Their practices were sometimes mystical, but often very scientific and psychological. During epidemics, they refrained from informing the people on what was going on, not even to the emperors at times, in order to avoid mass panic and mass hysteria that they could create. They knew about how people could panic and start spreading rumors to make things worse. So they studied history, remembered everything Sujin Tenno and other emperors before them, like the 29th Emperor Kinmei Tenno, who also experienced an epidemic at his time, brought back from the present-day Korea to mention another, and created the original social distancing. Yes, I am serious. It is said that we adopted the custom of bowing from China, which we the Japanese are now more famous for, and many scholars believe it was not only the courts and the aristocrats, but the Onmyojis who strictly emphasized and popularized the bows to be spread beyond the ruling class onto everybody in the nation, done during either from the Asuka era to the Heian era, when different epidemics swept the nation during those times. They started to distance themselves from 1 to 2 meters, not only because they had the eboshi and to prevent them from colliding, but most importantly for preventing epidemic. The fans that they used to cover their mouths when speaking was not for any posh reasons like many uninformed people would say, but was to prevent the spread of the epidemic. All of these things were done for a reason, and the Onmyojis apparently had a big part in them. This also means that epidemics created cultures and customs in Japan. For example, some parts of the Kokufu bunka of the Heian era. So, some of the world-famous Japanese saho or etiquette and manner or methods were born also during the Heian period due to the epidemics. The Japanese houses, starting with the nobles of course, were built to have awesome and effective flow of air for purification purposes from the Asuka era. Also, the shikuri, the Japanese plasters, and tsuchikabe, earth walls or mud walls, were used for antiviral purposes and to promote the good bacteria. They also used salt for antiviral and antibacterial purposes because that was all they had at the time. Also putting salt in water for purification. Salt was not only for the gods when we purify their shrines or the dohyo for sumo. The Onmyojis were the first original Japanese scientists who never saw viruses as enemies but something to coexist with. We saw viruses as strict teachers who taught us what to do. Very Japanese point of view indeed of the wa or peace, which is the Yamato spirit. Remember, just like Asian medicine is preventative medicine, we the Japanese were taking lots of preventative measures from centuries ago, which we still practice today. One of the criticisms I get all the times by foreigners is the bows appear too distant and cold-hearted. It beats exchanging saliva on each other's cheeks when greeting someone, especially during global crisis like the one we are experiencing right now, and we have been practicing this for centuries for an important reason that has paid off right now. Here's another thing almost nobody knows about this great nation. The Japanese language, the original Yamato kotoba, when created by our wise ancestors, was designed so that when spoken, spit wouldn't come out to maintain elegance and beauty and respect. When one speaks perfect Japanese, in perfect Japanese pronunciation, spit rarely comes out. At least not so often compared to other languages. That goes the same for me when I speak Japanese. The same thing cannot be said when I speak other languages, which I have also observed in others. That's just my personal observation and opinion. Disease prevention was another reason why aibasami was strictly prohibited in our culture when eating. We were preventing the infection and the spread properly from back then because we knew it spread more from our homes, and family members were more likely to infect other family members. Another reason why we don't use the same towels, cups, dishes, etc. With the corona outbreak, we are now even stricter with taking care of our health. As we go inside any buildings, we are required to wear masks and sanitize our hands with hand sanitizers. And for all of you anti-mask people who bash what we the Japanese do and call us paranoid, grow up and stop criticizing things you know nothing about. All of this is historical and has always been our culture way before the corona. The Japanese mentality for wearing a mask is not only to protect ourselves from any diseases, but most importantly, to protect other people from possibly contaminating or infecting them ourselves. We think, what if I have the virus but don't know about it? Well, I wouldn't want to be responsible for making anybody miserable by infecting that person, so I better wear a mask just in case.
We don't cover our face in America! They don't control us, we're Americans!
Maybe this is one of the many reasons why we, the Japanese, have the highest longevity in the world. We think about the others and we care about not causing any inconvenience to other people. That's it for this video. Thanks for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe to find out more about these unspoken secrets of Japan that not even the typical Japanese know. Next up, I will be interviewing the world-famous French artist, Marc Expl Skalshafiki. So please stay tuned. As always, folks, Yasaka!